Hi, everyone. I am Jay Wolf, Vice President of 212 NYC. And in the spirit of television, I am represented by my Gotham City Batman Zoom background. 212 NYC's mission is to build a better advertising industry. We do that by providing the programming, the platform, the tools, and the access to educational and professional development to help our members drive their careers forward. Today, we present, in partnership with Beachfront, a primer on Convergent TV for media buyers. As an organization, we are exuberant about this panel. The television ecosystem is rapidly evolving and viewer habits are continuously changing. How do buyers efficiently evaluate, reach, and influence TV audiences across screens? We're also excited to announce that attendees will be chosen to receive one of 3 prizes courtesy of Beachfront. Prizes include Bose Quiet Comfort 35-2 wireless noise canceling headphones, a $100 Airbnb gift card, or a $100 Ticketmaster gift card. So all great prizes. The winners will be contacted after the panel. And finally, 212 is a nonprofit organization, and we would not exist without the support from our board of directors and our sponsors. A massive thank you today to our sponsors and event host, Beachfront. And with that, please join me in welcoming David Clutter, VP, Head of Demand at Beachfront. David, take it away.
Great, thank you, Jay. and really want to thank everyone at 212 NYC for your time and energy that you put into connecting, educating, supporting, and mentoring the New York City digital ad community. Beachfront is proud to be a partner, and we're super excited about the panel that we're sponsoring today. Today's topic really sits at the core of Beachfront's DNA. And just for a little background on Beachfront, we are the Convergent TV platform, enabling media owners, programmers, and distributors to unify their cross-channel inventory. And for media buyers, our TV first tech stack, coupled with flat fee financial models and granular log level transparency, enable agencies and brands to drive more efficient and accountable advertising across all video and TV platforms. As mentioned, we have assembled a great group of people for today's panel that come from various backgrounds and approach this topic from different business practices. Before passing over to the panel, just wanted to share some insights from our perspective with my esteemed colleague, Daniel Church. So let's jump in and set the stage for today's conversation. Certainly, no surprise to anyone, CTV is having a real moment. The growth of CTV, both in viewing and investment over the past year and a half, the fire was likely already set, but certainly added fuel to the fire. The COVID pandemic added fuel to that fire. So it's become really a prevalent theme in our industry that this is hearkening in the death of linear TV. While CTV has had significant growth and incredible growth, the numbers really don't support this theme. As we look across viewership, connected TV certainly has grown to 214 million, certainly poached viewership away from pay TV, but pay TV remains a viable channel with 42% of overall viewership. And certainly in terms of engagement, is outpacing CTV, and in terms of overall ad spend at $66 billion. If we look at these trends how these trends will play out over time, you look at the viewing habits, we see a convergence in terms of connected TV and TV viewership. And the future will likely involve a balanced mix of both. This story plays out even further in terms of the investment, where we see connected TV doubling over the next 4 years, and we see linear TV remaining flat, but still robust at 66 billion. A key ingredient to this convergence is going to be delivering addressability to linear TV. And as we see today, about 78% of the households are currently enabled for addressable advertising. However, if you look at the linear addressable TV ad spend in comparison to the overall linear spend, it still remains relatively small. So we see this as a huge growth area. To recap, connected TV is growing, but pay TV isn't going anywhere soon. The future of TV likely involves a mixed balance of viewing across CTV and traditional pay TV. And really, addressability is really going to drive unified buying across both environments. With that, I'd like to pass it over to my esteemed colleague, Daniel Church, who's going to take a look at each Convergent TV environment, some best practices and use cases for each. Daniel?
Awesome. Thanks, David. So I'm Daniel Church, head of advanced TV product at Beachfront Media. Looking at CTV, the use cases are nearly endless. So, if you have an advertising, story to tell, CTV is one of the best places to tell it. You have opportunities for full funnel marketing. You have richer storytelling, interactive opportunities that are now starting to come about, which could include being able to actually go and input a cell phone number, for example, to be able to get a text message with a link to actually download something. One of the biggest things that you want to focus on with CTV, because it's the biggest screen in the house, is you definitely want to invest in the creative. So when you're actually paying the premium for CTV and connected, basically addressable television, you're going to want to invest in that actual creative. Almost just as important is the actual targeting. So being able to have different messages for different customer groups, being able to provide basically a tailored message for somebody who is in a demographic to buy a car, or maybe they're a truck contender rather than a minivan. Being able to actually get that message in front of the right people and being able to get it with a high quality creative is extremely important. So addressable television really combines the best of both linear and CTV. So for the most part, what it allows is CTV style targeting and individual one-to-one households on what is basically a linear stream. So that allows you to actually get that CTV feel and targeting ability with people who may or may not actually watch CTV. So if they are a pay TV customer, this is kind of the next best thing that brings them into the CTV-like environment. And there's two basic versions of this, at least today. You have both SASO and you have MASO. And so SASO would be being able to insert a truck contender ad over a national spot that is a generic automotive ad. And MASO is much more like CTV, where it's multi advertiser slot optimization is what it's called. And you're basically able to take what is a linear TV spot and on certain households completely one-to-one replace that ad with whatever targeting and creative dictates. Big advice for addressable, it is very new. Start testing, get familiar, test out if you're interested in creative versioning, being able to insert different messages to different parts of your audience. But really, this is pretty much the newest thing on the market. So testing is very, very important. And then lastly, we have cable, VOD, and spot linear. So unique audience is, if you're running digitally, if you're running programmatically today, you're probably not hitting some of these audiences. So what Beachfront has been doing is working to pull in this new kind of inventory, at least programmatically new kind of inventory, and basically replicate with programmatic the cost efficiencies and the targeting that is available through programmatic channels. Cost efficiencies are available. We talk to a lot of agency buyers who tell us that sometimes it takes several weeks to get some of these campaigns live. Through going through programmatic channels, that can be hours or minutes that are able to, and you're able to buy them through traditional DSPs and whatever other buying mechanisms you use today. So it really kind of brings in this, traditional TV inventory to be able to be bought across the full spectrum. So, start testing again. VOD and linear executions are cheaper than they've ever been before. And if you're not executing on traditional TV today, this is all new audiences that you can get access to.
That's great. Thanks, Daniel. And one last item before we pass it over to Laura and our venerated panel. Just wanted to run through some core tenets that we've seen from our clients in terms of navigating for success in the evolving TV landscape. So first, really building teams with cross disciplines, develop teams that have various business practices, including traditional TV and certainly digital and programmatic technologies. Secondly, deploy programmatic tech across TV screens, including linear, and drive uniform, more efficient buying across all the channels. Number three, really look at how you're deploying targeting. There's a lot of great options in terms of audience targeting and contextual targeting. Find the right balance of both. It's really about finding the right consumer in the right environment. It's kind of an age-old standard in advertising. Unify as the convergence of TV happens. Look to unify management of all your TV campaigns and really unlock those strategic applications such as negative targeting, frequency capping, and re-exposure. And then lastly, of course, utilize the power of programmatic and measure and optimize in real time. And with that, I want to pass it over to Laura Wu, our head of strategy and ops, to kick off the panel. Laura?
Thank you, David. All righty. So my name is Laura. I'll be moderating the panel. We have a really great group of thought leaders today joining us. So we have not a lot of time, so let's quickly get started. I'm going to kick off with a quick round of intros. So we'll have everybody kind of tell us name, role, the company, and kind of what you've been up to. So I'm going to go around the horn, start with Akil.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Akil Parekh. I'm SVP of Product Management at MediaOcean for Convergent Media. So this topic and this panel, I'm really excited to be here. I came to MediaOcean via the 4C acquisition that was made last year. And at 4C, I was the general manager for the Advanced TV product suite, where we built data-driven linear TV tools, as well as cross-channel planning and measurement tools, which are now deployed with marquee clients, both in the US as well as in APAC. And with our latest acquisition of Flash Talking, we are now the largest independent partner in omnichannel advertising. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Franz?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks to Beachfront again. My name is Franz Vermeulen. I was the chief operating officer of a streaming data company called TrueOptic, great partners of Beachfront. Similar to Akil, we were acquired by TransUnion in October of last year. So now I focus on TV market strategy and TV market development. I have been in the TV industry since about 2007 when we started Freewheel. There wasn't even connected TV, wasn't even on the radar back then. It was all web-based video. So happy to be part of the panel, happy to be part of this group, and look forward to the conversation.
Thanks. Corinne?
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. I'm Corinne Casagrande. I'm the head of strategy at Broadbean Media. We're a performance agency that's very focused on video. So as a performance agency, we are always looking to get the best value out of the best moving image on the best screen that we can, but we're also very focused on the back end and measurement finding our own ways of measurement for Converged TV, as well as making sure that we're examining all the options out there and testing them against our clients' KPIs.
Great. And Ritu.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Beachfront, for this very timely conversation. I'm Ritu Trivedi. I am an executive director at Mindshare. I run a couple of retail accounts that you must have heard of, TJX and Chanel. And I grew up in digital, but now I have the opportunity to work cross-channel. And this has been a very hot and interesting marketplace to work in with our clients, educating them, learning ourselves all the time. So really fun time to be in the industry.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So earlier, David shared some stats around from eMarketer around paid TV and how it's still really drawing some really big viewership numbers and still getting a lot of ad spend from from advertisers, even though we keep hearing that CTV is surging and lots of cord cutting. And so broadly, would love to get your guys' thoughts on this. So Corinne, I'm going to kick it off to you. What's your take on kind of some of these shifting trends and what you're seeing from your advertisers?
Yeah, well, definitely agree with both David and eMarketer that linear TV is an important component. It's kind of the last bastion of reach that we're seeing as advertisers. And just because we have to pay more for what we got last year for maybe even less viewers, it doesn't mean that it's also there's not value there. What we're seeing from streamers overall and just the way people are watching TV is that presently in some of the studies we fielded, people have a different relationship with turning on a cable remote than they do with appointment viewing a streaming service. This is particularly a marked difference with SVODs. So how people think about TV as a little bit more part of their daily diet, flip it on in the morning. It's a source of news. It's a source of connection. It's a source of this is how I'm interacting with the world in my day. It's also a little bit, it can be background in some ways. It can be on all day, and the time spent, as you'll see in the eMarketer and every Nielsen report, is significant at about 3 hours a day. It's not rapt attention and it's not appointment viewing in the same way that streaming selection and SVODs are. So we're seeing that right now people have a little bit of a different relationship with paid TV than they do with SVODs. When it comes to AVODs, however, and where we can actually insert advertising, that gets a little muddier and blends. You have services like Pluto that are essentially, or vMVPDs that are mimicking the same feel and the same experience of a cable TV or a pay TV situation, not to exclude Dish and Direct and the satellites, but there's just a little bit, it's a little trickier, and that's where we really try to dig in and understand how people are consuming AVODs and looking at AVODs, which I realized I didn't define, which is just advertising, anywhere you can put advertising, whereas the SVODs are the Disney Pluses, HBO Max, Netflixes of the world.
Yeah, we have a lot of acronyms here, but so Ritu, given some of your agency background and working with clients, what do you think some of the implications are for the agencies and media buying teams, right? What should we be thinking about as it relates to campaign activation across all the screens?
A lot of headaches. This season has been filled with a lot of headaches for everybody. Just trying to understand the marketplace. To Corinne's point, the consumer is behaving in a way that we knew was going to happen, but COVID has definitely accelerated those shifts. However, all the streaming partners are also not taking advertising. So understanding where advertising applies, where advertising doesn't apply. Overall, there's been a shift, a migration, but there's also been a fallout, because if you think about it, I think one of the stats that sticks in my head that we've been talking to clients about is for an hour of linear TV viewing, if there were 16 minutes of commercial time, in the future, that's going down to 3 minutes, because some of that viewership is actually going away into places and spaces where there is no advertising, as we all know from our own viewing. And then there are other places where it is going, but it's getting a lesser load. So if you think about that, what that is doing to the economics, that is something scary for our clients. They have to think about it. Now's the time for them to think, where are they going to test into things? Now, it's true, linear TV isn't going away, but even things like award shows, Olympics that's going on right now, we've all seen the headlines. So the clients are scratching their heads. They are thinking about where do they start migrating those dollars to just be more aware of where they need to be hedging their bets for the future. So we have seen that conversation happen a lot more. I think Danielle and David hit on this. We are talking a lot more about testing. Testing is always very, very tricky because you can't point back to MMMs. You can't think about all the things that have been established and talk to your stakeholders about that. But it's also something that we have to do. So one thing COVID has done is put everybody into that test and trial mentality. So I think there will be a lot more opportunity to work with new partners as well as old partners. And we're seeing a bigger appetite from our clients to want to try and test into things.
Yeah.
Laura, can I just chime in on both Corinne's and Ritu's comment? So on that front, right, the implications are multifold. What I heard about what Ritu just mentioned was, hey, there is a shift in economics. We need to know where the dollars are going. And at MediaOcean, we often say that marketers must market the way consumers consume. And that means providing advertisers and agencies the ability to make advertising across channels just as easy it is for consumers to consume that content, right? And what that means is that providing tools, because MediaOcean plays within the plan to pay workflow, where you are engaged in the planning process, you're engaged in the buying process, the negotiating process, all the way up to the pay workflow. So if you've created intelligent capabilities of, hey, can I just measure independently of what my buys were last year? I bought linear separately, I bought digital separately. Can I even figure out where my audience is and what's the deduplicated reach am I getting against my audience, so that I can now shift those dollars independently, so that when I can plan holistically, right, I can allocate budgets to appropriate channels where the viewership is based on actual deduplicated measurement, whether that is reach, whether that is outcomes, what have you, right? Depending on the data, reach is sort of the easier proposition. I say easy with quotes because even that isn't quite possible to its fullest extent. But I think if you do that, then you arm the buyers with the right tools, with the right budgets to go and negotiate or execute the buys across the right platforms and absolutely test across multiple platforms, depending on where those budgets have been allocated.
I'm gonna pile on top of that. You know, as a former sell side sort of operations person in this space, right? Akhil, you're focused a little more on the buy side at MediaOcean. Congrats on your acquisition. And someone from my perspective has been primarily sell side, and what you've seen is, yeah, the linear and connected TV are additive, right? How additive and what that incremental reach is to be determined and will shift over time. And COVID certainly spiked up the connected TV consumption, but it's created a lot of challenges at a large TV network, right? Who is both, it might also be subscription based and advertising based, linear and digital. And how do they set up their own systems and their own ability to say, yeah, you're better off having this impression run in a linear sense, or this one should be better sent in connected TV. Those challenges and sort of the ability to understand even their own inventory, predict their own sort of yield metrics, and of course try to adhere to the needs of their buyers is incredibly complex. There are a number of parties trying to solve for this sort of convergence that we see on the sell side, Freewheel, Magnite's I think in the mix now a little bit. And there's just a lot of attention to try to figure out how do I unify these two very different kinds of inventory to support the needs of buyers. As a former Comcast employee, I was pretty close to what NBC was doing. They're making all kinds of efforts with, a new pricing and economic model like C-Flight. The Freewheel sort of group continues to offer both optimizations for linear campaigns and connected TV campaigns together. I can just tell you that the complexity behind the scenes there is tremendous. And I guess the point is, especially on the large TV sellers, they're all working on it, and they're starting to see some real progress in unifying those two inventory sets right now.
And Laura, I'll promise I'll let you move forward after this, but because Franz mentioned NBCU, and NBCU is in fact using our buy-side technology to ultimately essentially figure that out. We're pretty proud to actually mention that, and the convergence of this inventory and how that can be made valuable to the buyers is essentially what we're doing with NBCU. So empowering the one platform. So I'm excited. Hey, I'll just stop the name dropping and let you move forward, Laura.
So Franz, you just mentioned, how CTV and traditional TV are kind of additive, right? And so my next question is actually around just kind of TV and the marketing funnel overall, right? TV is most commonly known as the classic top of funnel vehicle, right?
Yeah.
That you use for broad reach. But now with CTV, with addressability opening up, now there's opportunities for contextual targeting, for audience-based ad personalization. This is all going to happen on the big screen, which is all very, very new. So love to get Ritu, your perspective on, are the days of broad reach marketing play on pay TV over, or what's your take on that?
Look, there's always going to be a need, depending on the client you're working on, right? Depending on who they're trying to reach. Again, it comes back a lot to the consumer. Mm-hmm. If they're trying to put a big, broad message out there and get the maximum scale they can, we're still going to be on linear TV for that. If it is about targeting and addressability, then you will find other places and spaces to be. If it is a selected audience, an intentional audience. One thing I will say on Francis' point before, it is additive. And I think that conversation has been going on for a while, that paid TV and connected TV are additive. The big change I saw in this upfront was, usually we would go into the upfront and it would be about linear TV, and then everything else was bolted on or added on. What I saw for the first time happen this year was, no, let's think about it in entirety. Let's think about what I can, because now I can, to your point, get context, I can get great programming, and I can get scale with my streaming partners. So for the first time, it felt like we were talking about video all in, and we were trying to plan everything together versus just bolting on this digital, everything digital onto linear TV, which I think is exactly the way we need to be thinking about the future, because the consumer doesn't, none of us think about it like that. Now I'm going to go watch linear TV, and tomorrow I'm only going to watch streaming TV. So if you think the audience mentality and the consumer behavior, you have to plan all video at the same time. And that was a big change, I thought, in this particular upfront.
Yeah, TV is TV regardless of the screen or the wires that are powering it, especially from a consumer perspective. I think my take on this one a little bit is reach over? No, not for a long time. There will always be like huge tentpole events, like the Olympics and like live sports that will continue. Will it be at the reach levels of today? I don't know. Maybe not as broad, but the addressability of television and the television industry, even via like a couple of consortium projects. If you haven't heard of companies like OpenAP, other companies like BlockGraph, which are co-owned by some of the cable companies and the TV networks, they're trying to solve through the use of data and identity, which is what we offer as TransUnion into the television industry. We're powering both of those platforms with our sort of identity offerings. And through identity, you can get to a much more deterministic level of understanding of addressability, exactly who saw what ads, without actually sharing, personal information, and using what are known as, here's the data guy for a minute. Just let me play the data guy on TV here just for a second. Using data and identity to unify linear and digital for both measurement purposes and targeting purposes. That is effectively the mission of those two consortiums. And again, they're backed by the largest sellers of television advertising. We're proud partners of theirs as TransUnion, and that is the first step towards really being able to bring a much more sort of advanced level of addressability to linear addressability, like Daniel mentioned, connected TV, and even some of the traditional sort of set-top box VOD stuff. So we're really excited about those partnerships over here at TransUnion.
Yeah. Addressability is a huge topic right now, and there's That's actually going to be what I want to kind of ask you guys next around linear addressable, right? We're going out of beta testing. You mentioned a few of the consortiums that are all working on this. Project Or is another that Beachfront's also involved with, right? So we talked a little bit prior to this about what is addressability, right? So like for the context, so for the actual conversation here, like we're really thinking about linear addressable as targeted TV ads delivered on a home by home basis, right? So it could be delivered via cable, satellite boxes, and that includes video on demand and ads that are either dynamically inserted through smart TVs connected to set-top boxes. So dynamic ads. So with that kind of context in terms of linear addressable TV, a lot of these are emerging out of beta testing. Like we've talked a lot about testing, and this has been going on for quite some time, but there's a lot of advancement in recent months in this space specifically. So Corinne, I'd love to hear your thoughts a little bit from a buyer's perspective on what are you hearing from advertising partners around some of the most exciting opportunities in the space? Are they involving, are they thinking about addressability?
Yeah. I think from a TV buyer's point of view, they've been playing around with the idea of addressable television for a long time, and there were a lot of roadblocks. It took a very long time to get activated. It turned a $10 CPM into an $80 CPM. You had to wait 2 months for the reports. So I think there was a little bit of hesitancy around addressable in a way that I actually think that vendors have a little bit of their work cut out for them to prove like, no, it's different. It's seamless this time, and we can. No one doubts that you're able to target at that level, and that data is the best data. And I think that's the power of the MVPDs, is that there's a household there, there's an address, there's a credit card that's being billed, and it is real. So when the value of addressable TV for a media buyer is, I know that that's the household. I know you're going to hit it because you're working on TV principles of here's your delivery. If I didn't deliver, then I'm going to make good for you. And you have the purest form of data and somebody actually charging their credit card each month that I know lives there and turns on their television. So for us, from a targeting standpoint, that's really appealing. It's a question of how the pricing falls out, and then mapping the opportunity of that household and the value of that household against the overall opportunity. Because when we look at it, we do want to make sure that we're not paying a premium to exclude audience. And for some households, that's really important if it's a high value product, if it's a really important consumer. But for some, if it got down to like a CPG where my customer is anyone with a mouth, it's not as exciting. So I think that when we look at it, it's a very much a price-driven decision based on the opportunity and the lifetime value of the end customer that we're reaching. But we're pretty excited about the quality of the data when it comes to linear TV as opposed to programmatic and other forms of digital video.
Makes sense. So Akhil, would love you. What are your thoughts on addressable TV? What do you think the next 6 to 18 months looks like, right? It's been a long time coming. Curious what you're.
Yeah, I think in the short term, I think there'll be a lot of education that needs to go in. I think people have different definitions of addressable. So I think first coming onto the same page when it comes to the definition, education in terms of everything that Corinne said, I fully agree with. I think the way I look at it is, it's going to be another ancillary buy to linear, just like CTV is. And you're going to measure it based on incrementality, right, from linear. And then in the long run, I see it as, I think the big push is essentially bringing existing linear to fully addressable, right? So you are not just looking at, so there is no broadcast TV, if you will. And if that's sort of the end game where all the benefits of having a device, having a credit card, having a household that is being billed by a credit card by the pay TV MVPDs is then driving true addressable with massive scale, right? That is sort of the end game, but that's further out. But in the short term, I definitely think of it as education, getting buyers on board, testing, and then I think the strategy around testing is essentially around processes, cost, and incrementality of audiences from my existing buys.
Perfect. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about just programmatic technology in TV in general, right? So at Beachfront, we think about bringing programmatic to TV as kind of democratizing access to TV, right? Traditionally, if you think about TV advertising, it's really like a few hundred top tier brands that have access and have the ability to buy TV ads. With the introduction of programmatic, it really opens up who can buy it. It could be thousands, tens of thousands of people brands who can just click and buy an ad on a TV and show up on the big screen. So as we think about how that evolves and how overall who can access TV advertising, would love to get your guys' perspective on this. And I'll point this one over to you, Corinne. Are you kind of seeing new categories of brands kind of jump in? If so, like what kind, and do you have any interesting use cases there?
Yeah, well, as you could probably tell from my hesitancy on addressable, our clients tend to not be selling Bentleys. We are a performance agency, so we do have smaller brands and growth brands for sure that are coming on board. And we're seeing, actually for the first time, people start with OTT before dipping into linear. So for example, we're doing the same tests, the same sort of match market, lift analyses, the same kind of things that you would do when you're turning on a new channel in linear, but starting in OTT. And it does feel like we can control the environment a little bit more. And it does make people a little bit less nervous because it's a shorter step from YouTube to Hulu than it is from YouTube to Fox News or something like that. So we are seeing a lot of D2Cs, obviously, because we're performance, and D2C brands really like to make TV look digital, and they're still very uncomfortable with how linear TV is transacted and works. So we're seeing a lot of subscription type brands and smaller D2Cs actually start from the OTT, direct buy or programmatic. And then once they have proved that video on that 55-inch screen works, then starting to turn on a linear layer. Which
and where are they coming from? Are they tapping out from like search and social, and they're just not getting the sort of reach that they need? And they're saying, awesome, TV is the next obvious answer. So let's start with a programmatic buy. I'm going to buy it through a DSP, hopefully run it, against our friends at Beachfront. And like, that seems like a really easy way to get started. Absolutely. I would say once they've hit a couple 100,000 on Facebook, which it's fully funded search, fully funded social. And then once they get to a little bit of a scale, maybe they're spending $200,000 a month on Facebook. That's when they start looking at other channels because they're already in podcasts and the other ones.
It's life stage of these brands as well, right? I mean, I'm sure, Corinne, you're seeing this, like when they are young and new and they only need to reach certain targeted, again, influencers or people that are their core, they're using some of those more direct channels. But as they start scaling for reach, they still do end up going to channels like linear. The one thing, Laura, I did want to touch upon in the addressable advertising, as we were talking about, and I'm surprised that wasn't raised yet, is at least it's a big topic for us when we talk to our clients about it. Testing is one, but creative. Like targetability is great, but the emphasis that puts on and the burden that puts on the amount of creative needed and the kind of creative needed, a lot of the sort of bigger clients, they're not used to producing creative like that.
Yeah.
And that is uncomfortable for them. So I will say, and it adds to cost quite a bit. So I think sometimes because of the creative conversation, we see them shying away because since the success isn't there or success hasn't been proven, taking on that added investment for creative becomes a little bit of a barrier.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, my next, I think that segues really well into the next couple questions I have, which are kind of around balancing kind of audience targeting versus content targeting, right? So I think there's often a debate about what works and what's more impactful. And so would love to hear your thoughts, Ritu, on that and how that relates to what you just said.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, I think for me, we are beginning to ask clients questions that they're not used to sometimes addressing with a media agency or as part of a media execution, which is, what do you really want to do? Who are you trying to reach? Where's your growth prospects? How are you growing your business over the next 2 to 3 years? Are you only going to reach your core? Are you looking for new prospects? What do those prospects look like? What audiences are we going after? And when you start asking some of those questions, some of them have those answers, some of them within the organization, they're not necessarily equipped to have that information readily available. And that becomes, the more we talk about the way media can today behave with addressability and targetability, I think this is where the DTCs or D2Cs have shown that they have all of that data about their customers readily available to then be able to translate into how they want to bring it to media executions. And that part of the science is a little bit missing in the way we have been doing some of the things. But if it starts with that, I think it is an easier conversation then that can be translated into the audience buying mentality for everything, whether it is the TV or digital, doesn't matter. But if you start with some of those macro questions, then it's easier for us to kind of say, why this channel, why that channel, why this audience here, what are the KPIs, what is the measurement framework, and be able to prove. But that takes time. That takes organization help from departments that we don't necessarily work with within our clients, and for them also to create sort of a rhythm there. So I would say those are happening more as we start educating and start talking about the regulation that's about to come and how we need to be thinking about these things. But it is definitely a muscle that we have to train more.
If I could chime in a little bit, I find this, as a person who's been in the digital and TV industry for 20 plus years, I find it almost kind of funny. It's like early in the days of digital advertising, when I was working at DoubleClick, we were able to produce the first, cookie-based retargeting kinds of products, right? Sorry for that, for all those ads following you around, for following around the web. We were partially responsible for that. All right, but that's all about moving from context to audience. And now that there's lots of news. Hey, the death of the third-party cookie, and again, completely agree with you. The sort of regulation is coming. Digital identifiers are continuing to go away, or at least they'll continue to change and machinate, making it harder to create those associations between devices and people. And what's the response for the industry? It's bad. We're back to context, baby. It's like what's old is new again. I don't think that trend of, let's say, digital identifiers, let's say, going away or changing a lot applies as much in television, because it's really a household-based experience, very different from my personal relationship with the devices in my home. So I don't think TV will be as impacted by that trend of identifiers going away. But I just, that balance between context and audience will, I think, continue to become interesting. I actually think in TV, you're going to have more audience over the next couple of years than pure context, right? Other than sort of big tent pole and live events.
It's a good prediction. I was going to hop over, we're running short on time, so I was going to hop over on a few bold predictions for each of you before, but I like that prediction, Franz. So I'm going to go around the horn very quick. If we were to host this panel in 5 years or maybe even 10 years from now, what will TV viewing look like? And what do you think TV advertising is going to be like? So let's start with Akhil.
Yeah, I think of TV as a lean back experience, whether it's broadcasted or streamed as an industry. I don't know whether we'll probably solve it in 5 years, but I'd love to see significant improvement in 3 areas. Number one, first around content discovery, make it super easy for whatever I want to watch. Number two, really eliminating over frequency of ads, wasted impressions, poor consumer experience. And third, I think it's finally around commerce. The entire commercial experience and storytelling experience should be closed loop from impression to conversion.
Great. Franz?
We're solving attribution in 5 years, Akhil? Wow, that's a bold one. That's a bold one. No, I agree with those. Look, from my side, I think a lot more. I think this sort of acceleration of cord cutting is going to continue, but it's going to be replaced with subscriptions to all kinds of different, connected TV and video sort of subscription services. I think the industry also is going to get much smarter around hybrid business models between what Corinne was talking about early in the conversation, which is, where am I paying, a subscription fee for content? Other applications are purely ad supported. There'll be a whole range for consumers to choose from within an application. Hey, you want it free? It's got X amount of ads, maybe to Ritu's point, a heavier ad load. If you want to pay $5 a month, you'll see fewer ads. If you want to pay even more, you'll see no advertising, and like letting consumers self-select into the economic kind of model that works for them. But, underpinning that is just going to be this sort of, continued shift towards digital delivery of television. If the pandemic proved anything, other than the personal hardships it caused so many people in the country, it proved that connected TV scales, and it is the best of both worlds for marketers. I think quality viewing experiences, good quality content. There's now addressability as part of it, and you can dynamically insert ads to it. So I still think that's what the world's going to look like.
I totally agree with Franz, and I'm going to take his prediction to a darker and scarier place.
Oh no.
I think that with the growth of these SVODs, consumers are really signaling that they're willing to pay for content. And I think that the ad-supported business model in the US is going to see pressure that it hasn't seen in the last 70 years. Yes, terrestrial radio has incredible reach, but it's free, and I think that if cable providers don't adjust prices, if pay TV or if subscription, if the hybrid models are not priced correctly, that there will be a lot less opportunity and less inventory for us to buy high quality inventory.
Better be able to target it.
Ritu, let's close it out.
All right, so I have a couple. I think from a consumer perspective, the screens are just going to get closer and closer. They're not going to care where they're watching, and to the point both Franz and Corinne made, they will pay for a lot of things in the future, and therefore they will become, the unseen audience, unseen middle that we will have to figure out a way how you reach them. I think there'll be an expectation from consumers for full funnel advertising. We keep talking about that, what Savannah Guthrie was wearing this morning, and I want to be able to find that and just click away, and that will become more real. I think there is a lot of work again that has happened over the last year and a half with QR codes. They're alive and well and coming back with force. I think that will continue. I think there will be no upfronts, new fronts. There'll be one front, and we'll see a lot more mergers happening between companies. Everybody will have a streaming extension or a plus something, I think. So the economics will change there of how they come to market and how their content is going to be accessible to us to buy. And it will get more expensive. I agree with Corinne there completely. I think it will get more expensive, and our clients will have to get comfortable with that because they'll be paying a lot more, but it will pay off. It will be more effective, and we will be able to get better measurement to prove that out. So a little bright.
Awesome. Good. I love that. All right. We're going to quickly move to Q&A. We have 10 minutes and we have a lot of questions. So I'm going to start. Let's tackle the first one. So I have clients who are reticent or uncertain about jumping into and putting budget against CTV and addressable TV advertising. How can I encourage them to take the leap?
I can take that. Others chime in. I have my own perspective. I think it goes back to the whole process of giving them the tools that allow them to see where the audiences are so that they can allocate budgets appropriately, right? And that goes back to being able to measure where your audiences are. So if you have done any kind of independent buying across different channels, come talk to us. We will be happy to help you in terms of how you can allocate your budgets appropriately based on where your audiences are. Advertisers buy audiences, not platforms. So focus on the audiences wherever they are and allocate your budgets appropriately. That's my point of view.
I would just say test, and do things that are more in their comfort zone. So I like the point Karan made, which was if they are already on linear, maybe moving to Hulu is a little bit easier for them because it's still a TV-like environment. If they're already on Hulu, maybe you take the next step of bringing them to YouTube Select. So do it incrementally, prove it out, and then you will scale. But education and testing is the most important thing, I would say.
Great points. Next question. What metrics or dimensions do most advertisers optimize against to make sure their OTT investments perform? Curious. We'll just keep it at that.
Well, we have different clients have different metrics, but if you're e-commerce, it's a lot easier. We've been talking a lot about attribution, but I think we haven't specifically talked about the technology that's really powering linear and OTT cross, which is ACR, audio content recognition. For those not familiar with that, that's just simply hearing things that your TV listening to you, essentially, for those TVs that are able to on that panel. So with that power, we can do things like connect actions on websites to the actual exposed household view. So we know which households were exposed. We know which households converted on a website action, but we can also know a little bit about retail through other technology too. It takes kind of a third step to tie that together. So e-com is the easiest, and then everyone else has a harder road to hoe, but it's possible.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the sort of thesis of was it Walmart and the Trade Desk partnering sort of recently, where these large retail companies, including Amazon, which got the lead on it, is doing a lot in connected TV. They can close the loop, right? You saw an ad for X, Y, and Z in a connected TV environment, and you bought it on Target.com, you bought it on Walmart.com, or I saw that you bought it in one of our stores. That's an easy place to get started, I would imagine. I'm not as close to the advertiser side necessarily as the other folks on this panel, but that's another interesting idea, is that closed loop is available with one, in a one-stop shop or with one partnership.
Well, and a quick follow-on to that question from the same person was, can you buy cable VOD via programmatic yet? And what kinds of inventories are still not available to buy in DSPs?
You can buy cable VOD in Beachfront.
I was just going to say that.
That's a good answer. I was going to say,
this is David's world.
Water.
Give us a shout. So the answer is yes. So we have, we're reaching about 40 million households in programmatic addressable set-top box VOD. We just integrated at the beginning of the year. We started offering live linear programmatically. We're doing national addressable now. So there's a lot of options in terms of cross-channel buying programmatically through Beachfront. So, and I know there's other platforms as well that are making inroads.
It only took 20 years, David.
Yeah. I have a lot of gray hair.
The next question: are there any differences or advantages to advertising on OTT content on CTV devices versus OTT content on digital platforms like desktop mobile?
To me, that's a little bit of an experiential. Do you want it on a 55-inch screen, or are you okay with it on the smartphone? Of course, you can track more on the smartphone and the desktop, but are you trading off that experience of actually getting on the TV? And do you call it TV if it is showing up on mobile? That said, there are some complications, whereas if people are streaming from through a OTT device from their mobile, a lot of things get a little bit muddy. but when we are telling clients that we are doing a CTV buy for them or an OTT buy for them, we are delivering it on the television screen. And
Which, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is household based, right? Everyone in the house, and there's multiple people, watching a big screen. It's different than the one-to-one experience of mobile. I agree 100%. It's a much sort of prettier, creative experience, and also you're reaching anyone who's in the home often.
Yeah, I would say it's between, what are you trying to achieve? If it's storytelling, a bigger screen, and that's where you want to lean in and is into the more creative and storytelling aspect of it. If it is the smaller screen, maybe it's more about interactivity, because those tend to be the consumer expectations.
Totally fair. Yeah. So the next question we have, it goes back to what we were discussing about democratization. So the question is, if thousands of advertisers can now jump into programmatic, how do we maintain creative excellence? Is there a concern that these spots will become remnant-like?
Nobody wants this one.
yes.
I'll tell you, I think yes, Corinne. I also worry a little bit, right, as more addressability comes in, and programmatically we need to be really careful about not overexposing any individual household to, if we know they're interested in cars and they keep getting bombarded by only car ads, that's not a great experience for the consumer or publisher in that case. So we have to balance some of that. And programmatic is a good channel to start really aiming at fixing some of those challenges.
Yeah, I would agree with Franz. I think we touched on some of this stuff earlier, but really unifying the platforms as these things start to converge, and unifying your campaign management, understanding how many times you're hitting a user with a message, where you're hitting that user, I think those are really important factors as we continue to move forward.
Cool. So we're going to do one more question. Has anyone experimented with ID resolution from CTV to mobile devices in the room to drive asynchronous cross-screen experiences?
We do this for a living, quite literally. All devices in the home. This is the legacy TrueOptic business, and now actively being merged to TransUnion. Our sort of secret sauce and patented approach to understanding identity was understanding all the devices that are persistently part of a given household. That includes mobile devices. It includes smart speaker audio as well, which is an interesting channel and a growing channel beyond connected. It has a lot of similarities to connected TV, but being able to understand the devices that are persistently part of the home is exactly what you need to offer the right kind of targeting and measurement. And that's exactly what we're focused on at TransUnion, quite frankly, and offering those services to programmatic platforms, to anyone on the buy side, frankly, anyone on the sell side, or any other sort of enabler, that where that would make sense. So this is one of our missions in life.
And we work very closely with TransUnion. So yeah, I'll add on to that.
Thank you.
Definitely agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. This was a really great panel, lots of great Q&A. Thank you for the audience for all those great questions. I'm going to hand it over to Jay.
Yeah, so one of our core tenets is thought-provoking content. I'd say you guys hit a home run today. So thank you so much. I will be honest, the bold predictions were very bold, but we'll see if we can accomplish those in the next 3 to 4 years. I especially like the tie into attribution. We'll see if that actually happens. And what Ritu said, which is, test. This is the time to test. There are going to be a lot of new technologies and a lot of new ways to discover content and apply all the things we learned about cable VOD and SVOD. And so we hope everybody learned today. We're really excited. 212 is thrilled to present this content. We are thrilled to Beachfront. Thank you so much. Thank you to our esteemed panelists. Thank you, Ritu, who's also on our programming leadership team and board. And thank you to everybody who's a member. If you're not a member, just a reminder, please sign up for 212 NYC at 212nyc.org. Again, that's 212nyc.org. Stay tuned for our next thought-provoking panel. And thank you to everybody today for joining. We really appreciate it. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thanks again.
Thank
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.